All right, we are here on the Ultimate Sports Network. My name is Frank Gordon. We're talking our interviewing interviewers, and we have a new person to the Ultimate Sports Network. So, take it away, sir.
Hello, my name is Noel Guerra. I am from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm 23 years old. I just graduated back in December at Westchester University. I'm new to the Ultimate Sports Network. My thing is writing about basketball. I love all sports, but really basketball is what kind of just like I gravitated towards that at a young age. Played it. Once I started writing, that's kind of all I really wanted to write about. So that's what I'm here, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to build myself a brand, trying to build myself a resume. I'm brand new to this. I like I said, I just graduated in December, so I'm very brand new to this. But yeah, that's why I'm here, and I'm just trying to get my feet wet in the business, try to get my feet wet and show off my writing skills and show off my love and my passion for the sport.
Okay, and what gave you this passion? What provided you with the insight in this? Is what I want to do.
I don't know. To be honest, I just grew up loving basketball, and there was a time where I think sometime in high school where I just started writing, and people were enjoying my writing, and I was like, how about I put the two things together? And then once I got into college, I was focused, this is what I want to do. Nothing's going to stop me from getting to this task. I didn't waver. Some people go in and, they might not know I knew exactly what I wanted to do. So I just put the two passions of mine and just put them together for the most part, writing and basketball. So that's what I decided to do with my life.
Sounds good. Now, when you look at a basketball game, what do you see that you can get people to understand what's happening?
What I like to try to do is it's more of the narrative to things. What I like to do is kind of try to put an historical presence to the game. That's kind of what I like to do. So that's hard to do in a regular season game. If you're watching Minnesota versus OKC, that might be a little bit more difficult. But there is a context to everything. Just trying to break down the game rather than just scoring more than the other team. There is a nuance to it. And that's kind of what I try to break down and try to figure out, there are patterns, there are historical patterns that people tend to either forget or just they don't realize. So that's kind of the thing that I like to do the most. Because I don't want to say it's easy to break down the game, but it's there in front of your face. It's not that hard to, that person, they're running this play or backdoor cuts and stuff like that. So I kind of like to try to control, have someone maybe see the narrative or see the historical aspect or the historical context to a game.
Okay, so we're looking at things historically. Now, there are old people like myself say, well, the game was so much greater back, blah, 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 blah. And people older than me say, blah, 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 blah. The game has evolved. Is there still room for new school and old school, or is there a complete divide, do you think?
I think there can be a coming together of the new school and old school. Now, the problem is I feel like people are so heavy on the old school being the ones that are out of touch and, just outdated and stuff like that. But there's a reason that they feel that way is because everything felt more special. Everything felt like it mattered. Whereas today, the regular season might not matter. For instance, Brooklyn can, let's say Kyrie's there. Brooklyn can win 50 games, but guess what's going to happen if they're the fourth seed? Who are you going to put your money on?
Right.
You're going to put your money on Brooklyn. So I think that's where the older generation's coming in. Sometimes they don't know how to necessarily say it. The Shaqs of the world or the Barkleys of the world. They might be too aggressive, but for someone like myself, yes, I'm 23, but I understand the historical context of the sport. So I understand where they're coming from. And with the new school, what they have to do is they have to understand that yes, the game has evolved to a certain degree, but like I said, the play is different, which is a good thing, but also the seriousness or I don't know how to phrase it, but watching a team just be manufactured through other avenues, that it's tiresome. You watch your favorite show, you don't like this different characters every episode, you know?
Right.
That's the way that NBA fans, like the younger generation, they kind of need to understand that. Because football does not have that problem. You like to see the same people on your team in football. Same thing goes for baseball. Same thing goes for other sports. It's just the NBA has this problem with the divide between old school and new school. Because in football, the passing game obviously has dictated the whole entire NFL now. But the old school have, for the most part, they've accepted it. They understand that this is the way of scoring. Running backs are kind of obsolete sometimes. Okay, it is what it is. Basketball still has that problem of old school versus new school. And I think there just needs to be a gap. Like there needs to be a middle ground somewhere.
Okay, now you mentioned something very important there. If you're commenting on, say, the Nets or the Lakers we know aren't constructed to do, who cares what they do in the regular season. How do you comment on a team like that for 82 games when you know those 82 games, in everybody's opinion, I'm not going to say everybody, but close to it, those 82 games really don't matter per se?
What you kind of need to do is, it's sort of like last year. You got to, if there are red flags, you can, as a writer myself, you cannot be scared to point out the red flags. Because there were a lot of red flags last year. Injuries, depth, shooting, chemistry. There were issues last year. If those issues arise once again, you cannot be scared to mention it and say, wait a minute, pump the brakes. What if they aren't the favorites? And sure, most likely they're gonna be. But for those 82 games, don't be scared to mention if there's a hiccup here or there, It might seem like a foregone conclusion, but nothing is 100%. Like Brooklyn was 100% to a lot of people last year. And then what happened? Injuries occur. Lakers get bounced in the first round, and then you have the Bucks as your world champions. So, yes, it's the whole thing to me is it's never 100%. So you cannot be afraid to write in a sense of maybes or what ifs. Because like I said, anything can happen in sports in general. Anything can happen. One injury, we don't know if, let's say in Dallas, Luka goes up a notch and Kristaps is back, and back to who he used to be, or Devin Booker goes up a notch, or Jamal Murray comes back healthy, Kawhi comes back healthy. Anything can happen in sports. So yes, it might seem as though why write about them? It just becomes so mundane to write about a team that you feel as though that are going to be there, but you don't know what's going to happen.
Well, that brings a perfect example. Let's say the bottom 4 or 5 teams in the league, whomever you may think they are, and you can name them if you want, but is there some optimism for those teams, or are they bad for a reason they're going to stay bad? Not just saying this year, but maybe for another 2 years down the road, because again, we're looking at the Bucks from a few years ago. No one was going to say the Bucks were contenders, and
Correct.
No one said Giannis was going to take them there. It was a bad deal. You brought in, Chris Middleton, he's off the scrap heap. No one really wants him, and then suddenly it gels. Is there a team or two out there that are at the bottom of the league that their fans are saying, man, I wish we can turn this around? Or Phoenix is another example, and they look like they might turn it around.
So the first thing that comes to my mind, OKC. Why? Because of the draft capital that they have, and the prospects that they currently have. Obviously, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the prime prospect that they have that could be a star one day. But Lou Dort, they developed into at least decent offensive player who already had the tools to be a great defensive player. Darius Bazley is a solid big man. Pokashevsky, he didn't look too bad last year. Right. They have the pieces in place. There are teams. The reasons why the Bucks became who they are, and not necessarily Phoenix, but mostly definitely the Bucks. You can't be scared to take chances. They saw Giannis. They picked him, I believe, 15th, and they decided, you know what, let's just take a chance and see what happens, and they struck gold. You can't be afraid to do that. And that was that's kind of the reason why the Bucks are where they're at, is because they weren't afraid to take chances with Chris Middleton and see, okay, let's see how they develop. You have to have the right infrastructure. Teams like Minnesota, you felt like they've been rebuilding for years. Same thing with Sacramento. It's just a constant rebuild. Up until this point, Phoenix felt like that, until they added Chris Paul. So that's why I say with OKC, I feel like they have the proper infrastructure, the proper front office. They have the young prospects in place, or as of right now. So, and with the draft capital, they have everything going for them that in a few years, who knows what could happen. Other teams, I want them to be a little bit more optimistic, but it's hard just because of the track record, like a Sacramento or a Minnesota or even a Detroit. It's been such a long period of time of the same old. Higher draft picks, terrible records, new coaches, new front office. The way I look at OKC is like kind of, if you go to baseball, if you look at like the Tampa Bay Rays or like before the Astros cheated, where it's like, okay, we're going to lose, but we're going to keep building and building blocks. And then eventually, boom, you strike, and then you see what happens. I mean, it is kind of harder in the NBA because at the drop of a dime, someone can be, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander could be disgruntled and one out, at the drop of a dime. Because that's how it works in the NBA. But as of right now, they're in prime position to become a true contender in my heart in the next 3 to 4 years. Especially if, I don't know if he signed it yet, but if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was to sign after his post-rookie contract extension, you're set. Because now you have him locked up for 5 years, plus the draft capital, plus a Lou Dort, who's your elite defender already. He's already a top 5 perimeter defender already. And then you have the other young talent, like I said, Darius Baisley, Isaiah Roby, Pokashevsky. That's why I believe OKC is in prime position.
Okay. Now, the flip side of that, who is that fringe team that's just about there, but they're going to start taking a step down?
A fringe team that's there. The first team that came to my mind, probably the Indiana Pacers. The reason why I say that is because Sabonis, I'm a big fan of Sabonis. I'm a big fan of Malcolm Brogdon. Even Karis LeVert I like. But none of them, Sabonis, I could see being the second best player on a great team. And Sabonis is, to me, fringe of that. Brogdon, I can't. He's already about 28. He came into the league a finished product. Karis LeVert has health problems, not necessarily even just injuries. He has legitimate health problems. TJ Warren is still dealing with the broken foot, and Miles Turner is pretty good defensively, but I just can't see him putting it together. And yeah, they're on the fringes of, becoming a playoff team, but they're the one team I just don't see. I saw Chicago. I feel like Chicago is taking a jump. I feel like Charlotte is going to take a jump soon. I love Charlotte's roster. When I look at Indiana's roster, I just don't know. Like I said, Brogdon, he is who he is. He's nothing special. Sabonis is a really good, one of those good all-stars, but it's not going to really translate to anything like the Mehmet Okors of the world, where it's they'll be an all-star, but is it really going to translate to winning, or is it just, or even like Nikola Vucevic on the mat when he was on the Magic? It is what it is. So I think that's a team that they might sneak into the playoffs again, but at the same time, I could see them taking a dip. Toronto is almost there. The only saving grace for Toronto is they were able to get the 4th pick and they got Scotty Barnes, who has potential. So I feel like that's that's not the only thing. Also, I feel like with Toronto, they're not a hot destination, but they're not a bad one either. You have Drake, who's there, and everyone loves Drake, and then also with Kawhi coming in there winning the championship, Masai Ujiri, I was thinking about saying them, but at the same time, they have enough that in the future they can get better. So that's why I would say the Indiana Pacers. Okay, and you're looking at Sabonis. So I love Sabonis too, but he's one of those guys that can get 20 and 10 on that team. But if you put him on another, somebody's got scoring and rebounds on that team, so it might as well be him. But if you move him to another squad, that's my Kevin Love idea. Is he did great with the Timberwolves because no one else. Someone had to do it.
Yeah, someone had to do it. Right. There are shots to be taken and points to be had and rebounds to be made. So moving to another team, he's going to slide down a little bit. So yeah, that's pretty cool. So I tell you what, give people a place where they can find you other than just here and as well as here, and how to follow what you do.
So you could follow me on Twitter at Noel B-Ball Writer. Also Instagram, Sports Writer Noel. Also with the Twitter though, each first letter it should be capitalized in order to find me. Check out my work on here. I have other other works that you can find on Twitter and Instagram. If also my handles, my email, all that is on Ultimate Sports Network if you subscribe. And just check out my work. I should definitely be, putting more time in, and you should be seeing a lot of content from me.
Cool. Season's coming up. We've got the preseason started, and the fire's starting to burn. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. All right. Everybody, please check out Noel. Under the Rim. We're going to have some fun.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.